Hello, world. So all of my Bitcoin signals have now been activated. I'll keep this video short because I've explained in thorough detail in all of my previous videos in sequence what I think is happening on my prediction for the Bitcoin cycle top. So our first signal, which is the 4-year cycle timeline, we have 3 scenarios. The first scenario has already played out in reality. Even though that was what I thought was the more unlikely scenario. And when I say unlikely, I mean, I didn't think that will be the ultimate top, but I'm actually starting to think of what might play out. I actually think my scenario 1 and scenario 2 will end up being correct, but in 2 different ways. So I'll explain that at the end of this video. So for the rest of the other signals, we have signal number 2, which was extreme euphoria, which we saw a little bit of. And then we have signal number 3, Robinhood Hap in the top 10. Like I said, I believe Robinhood to me is a lot more popular than Coinbase. We have the Bitcoin dominance funny bounce, which I explained. And then we had the ETF announcement. So I'm going to reveal the last 2 signals, which I think are unfolding now. MSTR stock pattern behavior and Mara stock pattern behavior. So when I say pattern behavior, there's a way that the MSTR stock and the Mara stock behave at the end of the Bitcoin cycle. And I noticed this patterns by looking at historical Bitcoin cycles to see what these stocks were doing. And what I mean by that is for MSTR, if we go to our chart, MSTR never returns above its all-time high during the Bitcoin cycle. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So you see this black line here? This is sort of a trend line for where MSTR faces huge resistance. And as you can see, once MSTR forms a top, which was a high over here, it never regains that high throughout the rest of the Bitcoin cycle. And that is exactly what is happening here. You could see MSTR continues to trend down, even though this whole time Bitcoin has been forming higher highs. So this to me is the sign of the end, or soon to be the end. In fact, not only is MSTR not even forming newer highs, MSTR is actually going under the 200, which means bear market, which is actually pretty insane. So there you have it for MSTR. Now, Mara, when I say Mara behavior, what I mean by that is in previous bull markets towards the end of the cycle, so let's go to the 2021 cycle. So if we go to 2021, 1110, this is when Bitcoin topped in the previous cycle. As you can see here, Mara topped out right when they had earnings, pretty much close to the exact earnings date, because the earnings date for Mara was November 10th, actually, was the earnings date. So Mara topped about a day before earnings. So Mara topped a day before earnings of the top of the Bitcoin cycle, because the Bitcoin cycle topped the day after. Okay, so that was the previous cycle. Now let's go back to the cycle before that, which was the 2017 cycle. So 1217, if we go there, so Bitcoin topped on this date, you could see Mara earnings again was here. So Mara topped out of like 2 or 3 days after earnings, But then Bitcoin topped out just a few days shortly after that, as you can see here. So if I were to use this pattern as an indicator, to me, the best time to get out of Bitcoin before the ultimate top will be anytime on or before Mara earnings towards the end of the Bitcoin cycle. So if we compare that to today's date, which we're in 2025, October 25th, as you can see here, Mara earnings is coming up. So Mara earnings is November 4th, which is just in a few days coming up here. So to me, the next high we're going to get will be around this Mara earnings time period. So this will be your second opportunity potentially to get out of the market if you're holding any crypto. So that being said, based off of that, I'm giving this a time range of October 26th to November 4th for this cycle to peak out. Now, when I say both my scenarios here will play out, what I mean by that is I feel now I'm starting to think scenario 1 was the actual real top, and then scenario 2 will rally, but it will be a lower high than the scenario 1 top. So both of them will peak out, but scenario 2 will be a lower high than scenario 1. And then ultimately scenario 2 will be the second opportunity to get out of the market. And I think the Bitcoin cycle is over. So let me know your thoughts, but that's what I think. Good luck to everybody. I'm out of the market and I'm just watching this to see how it plays out and if my thesis turns out to be correct.